Hello everyone and welcome to episode 18 of the Crag Chat Climbing Podcast. In today's episode, Professor, Dad, and climber Joel Brady shares the story of bolting and getting the first ascent of the 514 Green Magic in the Hills, Seneca's hardest line. Joel is also part of last year's winning team for 24 Hours of Horseshoe Hell, an outdoor climbing competition that we discuss in depth for the remainder of the episode. If you're listening to this episode on the day that it's released, send Joel and I some good luck vibes as we will both be competing in hell. Joel got into climbing at a church camp when he was a kid, and since then has climbed all over the U.S. for the past 30 years. Although he started off as a rope climber, he got very into bouldering for a while.
It was just more convenient to boulder, plus I liked it a lot, like the intensity of doing limit moves. And so Lisa Rands was a really strong climber in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I remember watching a video with her where she said, it just kind of works out that the harder boulders are the better boulders. They're cleaner. The movement ends up being more interesting. And that's no knock on easier climbs. There's great easy climbs. But it is true that the more difficult they get, frequently just they're cleaner, the lines are purer, and they're often more distinctive. The holds get fewer and farther between, so each of those holds counts that much more.
Right.
And so the bouldering thing really has appealed to me for a lot of years. And then over the course of 8 years, I have 4 children. My oldest is 15 now. For many years, my wife worked every weekend of the year. She's a nurse. And so on the weekends, it's me and the kids, and we're going climbing. And the easiest way to do that was to boulder, because it's easier to deal with a kid issue from 10 feet off the ground than being up 60 feet and yelling at the kids.
I was going to say, I've seen crag dogs that get yelled at from up in the air.
Yeah, right.
Let alone kids.
Yeah. I also did the rope climbing thing. I would be up there, 60 feet off the deck in the Coliseum, looking down, hey kids, what are you doing? Shaking at a rest and just checking in with everyone. Most people I climb with are kind of used to that I'm going to roll thick with kids. My buddy Ryan has 6 kids, so we would climb together a lot. And,
there's 12 of you just between you and him and your kids.
Yeah, I remember we were at Somersville and someone was they were are these all your kids? And we were yeah, they're all ours. Guy was he's I can't even take care of myself, man.
That's how I feel too.
Yeah, and I was well, yeah, you just kind of figure it out and make it work. But then now that the kids have gotten older, plus we've got a decent rope climbing gym in Pittsburgh, and I've gone back to rope climbing, that's really where I started. Yeah, spent a lot of time rope climbing over the last 4 years or so, and that's been my primary focus, although I still boulder.
I originally heard about you from my friend Tara that was on one of the previous episodes of the podcast. For anyone listening or watching that might not have heard Tara's episode, you definitely should. She was saying that you and your partner Andrew put up a 514 route in Seneca. Tell me a little bit about that, because I've only been to Seneca one time.
Sure.
I climbed Gunsight Notch to South Peak Direct.
Yep. Which I still need to do. That's the ultra classic exposed moderate classic line. Yeah. Well, so our route, Green Magic in the Hills, it actually goes up right in the same sector that you're talking about. It starts about maybe 50 feet to the right on, you can do the first pitch of Greenwall or Tomato, which are to the right of Banana and Debbie. We spent a lot of time over 6 months working on that route, and we watched a lot of people climb Banana and Debbie. So we basically watched a lot of people have probably a similar experience as you, which is they get up there, they bang on the donk flakes, and then they get to that last move that's above the rattly pieces, and there's a little mantle there that's what do they call it, 5.6, 5.7 or something?
Yeah,
but it's all in that one move.
Right.
And it's above gear and in loose flakes, and yeah, we watched a lot of people back off that, basically.
I don't doubt it. I was just following on top ropes and stuff set up, so I was but it's still sketch,
And I finally went and did that route. I hadn't done it, but I went with Tyler, Tara's partner. I had my son Vaughn, he's 7. I just top roped it because I was top roping it with Vaughn.
Uh-huh.
I didn't lead it even, and Vaughn on-sided that route.
No way.
At age 7, but
That's
on top
amazing.
rope or whatever. But he just whatever, which was
Fearless.
pretty cool. Yeah, and we were simul top roping, so I was climbing next to him, and I got to watch the whole
That's
thing.
cool.
It was cool. Green Magic, pretty sketchy aid line that was put up in the late 90s, early 2000s maybe. A lot of people I think had looked at it like, I bet that goes free, but it looks pretty hard. So Andrew and I scoped it out, wrapped down it. Initially our idea was we were gonna go ground up on the thing, which is like the boulder style. And we got some feedback from some locals. Tom Cecil is one of them who runs Seneca Rocks Mountain Guides, and he was like, you're gonna produce kind of a garbage route if you go ground up, because basically you'll drill the bolts in the wrong spot. Because when you go ground up, you kind of like get to a place where you can't take it anymore and like hang on a hook and like drill the thing, and you don't end up with a well-crafted route, and the route required bolts.
Yeah.
So we knew we were gonna have to bolt it, which at Seneca can be controversial.
I was gonna say, how was that?
Honestly, we bolted it in the middle of the night. We've told people this, so it's not like a big secret now. It was then.
Yeah.
Bolted in the middle of the night, mainly because we didn't want to have a confrontation with someone in real time.
Right.
If somebody was gonna have a problem with it. So the idea was like, we knew that this route was worthy. It was like needed to be done. In our view, anyway. Couldn't be done without bolting, because you're gonna die. There's no pro on it. There's like 2 pieces of pro and 90 feet. The way we ended up doing it, it does have gear on it.
Okay.
So for the top 35 feet of it, which like basically the first 90 feet is 514, and then the last 35 feet is 5.9, a little more like traditional Seneca style 5.9.
Yeah.
And so we didn't put any bolts in up there. I don't think we don't sure if anybody had ever climbed that 35 feet. Maybe they did, probably they did. Like they accessed it but we weren't gonna put bolts in it.
Yeah.
I usually say I've been trad climbing for almost 30 years, but by that I mean I've done like one trad route a year for 30 years.
Gotcha.
So it's not like
I've been playing guitar similarly for the past 10 years.
Sure, yeah, you must be amazing.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah. And so we bolted it pretty sparsely, safely, but sparsely. We tried to like preserve the Seneca ethic on it. And then we left that last 35 feet as gear. You can even just like end it at the top of the 514 and then like bring your partner up and do that last bit as a third pitch.
Gotcha.
But when I did it, I strung those 2 pitches together in a single rope length, which was a much better. I basically just took 2 pieces of gear with me, climbed the sport section, got to the anchors of that. There's like a little ledge where you can kind of lay down, and I laid down on it, and then finished out the route plugging it's kind of run out. Like it's like an R-rated 5.9 up there.
It's Seneca, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, nothing different than any other Seneca route, basically. But that's definitely like, it's a full value experience because you climb a pitch to get up there, then you get a huge ledge, and then you climb this, like, it's for sure the hardest route at Seneca. Nails, technical, old school style vert climbing on razor blade holds that are barely there on like Seneca glass. It's not like new school 514 where it's like steep and powerful, and I'm not very good at that kind of climbing. This is just like very, very technical, stand on your feet and like shift your body in ways that you can use these like holds that are very small, slippery, and pointed the wrong way.
Yeah, and you like breathe wrong and you're done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're very easily off that thing. So yeah, we bolted it and we spent like 6 months working on it, Andrew and I. Andrew's also my partner for Horseshoe Hell.
For Horseshoe Hell, yeah.
Yeah,
we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
He's had a little bit of a rough
He
go
has.
of things.
Yeah. He got bit by a snake.
At Snake
Hill.
At Snake Hill.
At Snake Hill, yeah.
You would have never expected.
I know. I mean, what can I say? That's up there with like top moments of my climbing career was doing that route because it's the first 514 at Seneca. It's incredible position on top of the mountain. The climbing is amazing. I get like choked up like because it's
I'm like feeling it.
Yeah, it was, like when I got through the hard section where you're like, oh, I'm probably going to do it. Like, there's still many hard things above that, but like got through it and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember I looked down at my belayer, Matt, he's the ranger, the climbing ranger at Seneca. He was belaying me. And we just had this like, we like, I was like 60 feet up there and we like made eye contact. We didn't say anything, but we just like I think this is the one, buddy.
Like, oh, boy. Yeah.
I still had, like 60 more feet to do, and like there's a bunch of hard bouldering above that. But if you've done that, you're like,
yeah.
Shouldn't
But
fall.
You don't want to say anything out loud.
No.
Because if you did, it would.
I know. No, we didn't. I just kept like breathing, and it was
Yeah, that's
all-time moment for me.
That's so cool. I just now am. I told you I'm 6 years into climbing.
Yeah.
I'm about 4 years into like outdoor climbing.
Yeah.
But I'm just now hitting the point. At the beginning for me it was just like, oh, let's go out and like climb and just explore the areas and whatever. And I'm just now 4 years in, like being like, or let's project things. Like I want to like try to start projecting things.
Sure.
And so and I'm saying this in like, it pales in comparison, right? But I just like finished my first project that I ever like tried really, and it's just such a cool feeling. So I can only imagine how you felt.
Yeah, no, it's probably it's probably not that different, honestly.
But you also just the fact that you bolted it too, like that you put it up.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Right. There was it was a project.
Yeah.
It was quite a project.
And the name, I think I was reading an article. You named it after a friend.
So my buddy Michael Brown, who passed away actually the day before I did that route, and I had seen him the week before. He had difficulty communicating at that point near the end, and he said something to me about, like, he was talking about these pigs that were in his neighborhood when he was a kid. He was in his childhood home, and he was saying there were these pigs, and he was like, there's this one pig, that was my favorite pig, and I was just like,
okay,
I was like, what are we talking about, Mike? Like, it's a little bit surreal, because you're talking to your friend who's dying, and he just like kind of grabbed me and pulled me close, and he said, there's magic in the hills, and I was like, wow. Like I don't know what any of it really meant, like in in terms of some concrete meaning, but it was just this very unforgettable moment for me with him. Yeah, so then I got news that he had passed away the day before. I was pretty sure I was going to do it the next day, like I was, but Mike was kind of like in my mind, and then when I pulled over the ridge, I like kind of had this like pretty emotional breakdown, honestly. And there was another dude up there, and I was just like up there like just like weeping because of the whole thing. And then that's what popped into my head was this magic in the hills thing. And I kind of put that together with, we were like, call it green magic, call it magic in the hills. And then I was like, well, I don't know, what about green magic in the hills? And Matt was like, that's the one. And I was like, all right. It's kind of long. It's a little unwieldy, but...
it doesn't matter. It has a meaning,
Yeah. So we sometimes just call it green magic now, but yeah, full name is Green Magic in the Hills.
Yeah, that story reminds me of my my great-grandma, like similarly, when she was getting into her older age. At one point, she was sitting next to me on the couch, and she was tracing on my arm, and she was just kind of muttering under her breath, O-S-O-M, O-S-O-M. I'm like, so finally I'm like, what? She goes, you're awesome.
Oh.
I said, oh.
Nice.
But it's just like, different stories like that where it's like, it's like, maybe it's not, it's just so weird how you can go from having like a conversation like this to, you know, those types of conversations. But that's cool that you named the route after
Yeah, like you can have casual conversations with people, and then you're suddenly having, not that it was like the most important conversation in Michael's life or mine, but it was like, we're having a conversation that kind of means something here because this is the last time we'll talk
and he's talking about pigs.
Yeah.
But isn't that, I mean, that's kind of like beautiful in a way itself. It's like, it doesn't really matter, like a true friend, it doesn't really matter what you're talking about. You're just enjoying each other's company, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But,
that's right.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so speaking of true friends and enjoying each other's company, let's talk a little bit about Horseshoe Hell and
Andrew.
Your partner, Andrew, your good old friend.
He is a true friend.
I guess we should maybe start with what Horseshoe Hell is for someone that hasn't heard of it. How about the newbie says what it is even though she doesn't know, she's never been. So, it's a 12-hour or 24-hour climbing competition.
Or both of those together. Yeah.
It's outdoors in an area in Arkansas.
Horseshoe Canyon Ranch.
Horseshoe Canyon Ranch. And the goal is to, each route's assigned a point value based on, like you said, the difficulty and the length. Does length have...
Mainly the difficulty.
Okay, mainly the difficulty.
You can get a height bonus for going above 70 feet.
Okay.
But most of the routes don't go above 70 feet.
Gotcha.
So there is, you can get a bonus for, you can also get a bonus if it's a trad line.
Okay.
You get
that makes sense because trad takes more time.
One grade higher for trad lines.
Cool. So you and a partner climb essentially as much as you want to or until your arms fall off.
Yeah.
For that amount of time.
Right.
And it's called 24 Hours of Horseshoe Hell because the first one was, the 12-hour division was introduced later, right? Was it like originally, I think it was originally a 24-hour.
Yeah, like Jeremy Collins, Andy Chastain, and a couple other Arkansas guys got together and they were just like, how many climbs do you think we could do here in 12 or 24 hours? And it was just like their crew, basically. Yeah. And then it expanded into this big event that's, it's pretty well known in the climbing community, or I always think it's pretty well known, and then like pretty much anyone I mention it to though like has never heard of it. Yeah.
So something interesting to me is I thought it was well known as well, and then I went around the gym and I was like, it's 24, it's 24, and people go, what?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Newer climbers haven't heard of it. If you've been around for like 10 years, probably mainly because that Real Rock movie came out in 2012. I mean, I knew about it before then, but then that was like what really put it on the radar. And 2012 is 13 years ago now, right?
Yeah.
Or 11 years ago. My math is off. Especially for anyone who started climbing in the last 5 years, they're not going to have heard of it probably.
Yeah.
Because it's not like IFSC. It's not gold. It's not the Olympics.
And that's what I love about it. It's like. There's not a lot of, to my knowledge, there's not a lot of outdoor climbing competitions either. It's usually like a lot of the climbing competitions that you see are indoors.
Yeah, they do exist, and like they started outside. So like in the U.S., the Phoenix Bouldering Contest in the early 90s or even late 80s, actually, I think, was where like one of the early U.S. competitions, and then in Europe there were outdoor comps in the 80s.
Okay.
But then it like transitioned into indoor, and still there's in PA, there's the Governor Stables Comp, there's Triple Crown down in the southeast, there's the Waco Rock Rodeo.
Yeah.
They're not like national competitions, they're more like regional, and they're, kind of novelty comps. Yeah, you get bragging rights and like maybe pick up some swag or something, but it's not like the IFSC stuff.
Yeah.
It's not like serious competition. I mean, we take it pretty seriously.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about that competition is that it's so accessible to anyone. The ranch has routes down to like 5'4" that are bolted, I think.
That was one of the things that drew me to it because as like a 5'10"-ish climber, I'm like, I'm not gonna go out and do a competition when there's like 2 routes I can climb.
Yeah.
But then here, I've never been, but
I
looked it up. There's 166 sport routes under 5'10".
Yeah.
And
I'm
like, if I climb through all those, then you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So.
Yeah, which you could like if you really like got your systems down and like got motivated to just like fire like theoretically like. Yeah, I mean, there's people who last year there was a team that it was like their first time climbing outside.
Really?
They did this competition.
That's awesome.
I mean, everyone thought it was ridiculous that they were doing that, and there's a good like, there's a lot of like tongue-in-cheek, like busting chops that happens at this thing, but it's like a very, very accessible competition for climbers of all abilities. Plus, it's like people come up and some people just want to like climb some of the 24 and like do a route every 24 hours and then party the rest of the time. They call it like Burning Man for climbers for a reason, because there's like a rave going on around you and people bringing out bacon wrapped dates and there's like dancing and people like with pacifiers. I don't know, it's like a weird scene.
Yeah, and everyone's wearing costumes.
Too. Yeah, everybody's in costumes.
Our team name is the Pirates That Don't Do Anything, based on like the VeggieTales song. There's like a VeggieTales like, we are the we thought it'd be funny because we were like, man, we're gonna be doing a lot. And then we thought it'd be funny to name it like, oh, we're the Pirates That Don't Do Anything.
Yeah.
Like, so anyways, we're trying to figure out our costumes, because we realized, like we're gonna be wearing helmets. We gotta put a little hat on top.
Yep.
We thought maybe we'd paint eye patches on instead of like put an actual.
Yeah, because you'll lose the actual eye patch after a while.
We'll see. We're working on it. What's your team name?
We don't know yet, because usually Andrew and I are D'Artagnan and the Banjo Man.
Okay.
Like D'Artagnan, the musketeer, and then I play the banjo.
You play the banjo. So,
yeah,
okay.
and D'Artagnan weirdly rhymes with Banjo Man.
D'Artagnan.
D'Artagnan, it does.
Like, yeah.
I mean, the first year Andrew picked our name and it was dumb. He called us the Gritstone Climbers, and I didn't know he had done that. And I vetoed that the second year. Because everyone has, like, goofy names.
Like funny names, yeah.
Yeah, and my name's not great either, but that's what we've been. But now I don't know. Like,
no, you don't know, yeah.
Yeah, we thought,
so tell everyone what happened with Andrew.
Yeah, so Andrew was, like, berry picking on Snake Hill in Morgantown with his niece and his wife, and just, like, out of nowhere, this timber rattler bit him in the leg. They got out to the car they didn't run, because you're not supposed to run, because you don't want to get your heart rate up and, like, pump the venom through. But he said by the time they got to the car, he, like, couldn't move. And, you know, his, like, throat was, like, swollen up. So they gave him anti-venom, and then he was in the hospital for, like, 2 days, I can't remember, and then out, and then he was, like, back in for another week, and, like, he's got all this neurological damage, and
wow.
He's back rock climbing, but he still has, like, the neurological thing going on and respiratory issues.
Yeah, like, he's in no place to, like, push himself.
No, like, 3 weeks ago, we were still at a point where we hadn't decided, like, what's he gonna do? But then he got hospitalized again, and we were like, dude, like...
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, both Joel and I are competing in Hell.
Yeah.
It is
your
my
first year.
Yeah. It is your...
5th, 6th year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Joel and Andrew last year won Horseshoe Hell. Woo!
Yeah.
Congrats on that.
Thank
That's
you.
insane.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, like, last year and then leading into this year and...
Sure.
Yeah, just Horseshoe Hell in general.
Yeah, well, Andrew and I had been trying to win it for 5 years. When we first did it in, I don't remember when the first year was, 2017, 18, somewhere in there. I had been climbing with Andrew not for long. Andrew's like over 10 years younger than me. He connected with me and we were climbing around Morgantown for, I don't even know, a couple months maybe.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, I want to do Horseshoe Hell, will you do that with me? And I said, I have many family responsibilities. I feel like it's unlikely that I can get away to do this. No. But I said, like, ask everyone else in your life, and then if everyone else says no, like, come back. I'll probably still say no. But
yeah, it's like one of those things, like, when you're young with your friends. If we're not married in 40 years, we'll marry each other.
It was like that, yeah. But also, like, probably we're not going to get married. Yeah, so that's what he did. He was like, no one will do it with me. And not that he's, like, not a fun person to be around or anything, just nobody was going to do it. And then I actually had wanted to do it for a while because I had seen the crazy Alex Honnold Horseshoe Hell movie, which if you've not seen that,
I haven't.
You need to watch that.
No,
It's
okay,
great.
I'm excited.
It's not realistic in terms of like what actually happens in the competition.
Okay.
It doesn't really, but it's so entertaining. You can watch it on like Red Bull channel.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, Red Bull's great for that type of thing.
It's one of the real rocks. But then there's also a movie, The 24, which
I've watched The 24.
That captures it like more what you can expect in the competition. So anyway, I wanted to do it, and then he asked me, and I just like touched base with the family, and I was like, I don't know. My wife was like, yeah, you should totally do it, and I was like, all right, I guess we're doing this.
Yeah.
Thing. And the first year, Andrew was like, he took the lead on everything, like planning. You know, he really geeked out on all the like what strategies, and I didn't care. I was just like,
seriously, I'm here.
I'll follow whatever plan you set. Let's do it that way. And we did, like fine for our first year. Our goal was to like finish top 10, and I forget what else, but we did fine. But there was like a lot about our strategies that were off. We were tying in the first year. Worst thing you can do at Hell is tie in and untie.
Okay, gotcha.
You will, we end up doing like 300 pitches. And so like figure a minute for tying in and untying in times 300, that's like 5 hours.
Yeah.
That you just lose.
Huh, that's crazy.
When you could, and if you figure doing like 10 to 13 pitches an hour a piece, so like in that hour, you're losing like 20, you're losing like 100 pitches doing that.
Just tying, yeah.
Just tying and untying.
Yeah.
Because that's the kind of frenetic pace that you keep.
I remember when I caught you at the gym one time before, just briefly, and you mentioned something like that.
Yeah.
Then Jed and I were like, oh, well, we should practice being on a carabiner then, like, and how that all works. And the staff came by
Totally
and said,
you couldn't do that.
And said, hey, we're like, all right.
Yeah, there are.
Which, like, fair, but
yeah. We are at ascent, so we should, like, keep this quiet. But I think there is a way to do it that's within their rules.
Okay.
That gets closer to the way that you could do it at Hell.
Fair, okay.
Which is basically like, don't go in on a carabiner, which when we're practicing at the gym, we don't go in on a carabiner. We just stay tied into our own ropes.
Okay.
So the other method is 2-rope method, where each of you are just tied into your own rope the whole time.
Okay.
And you just never untie from your own rope.
And you just, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So anyway, we probably, we did fine the first year, but like we easily left, 50 pitches on the table by just tying and untying.
Tactics, yeah.
So we kind of worked that out after the first year. Like our second year, we did worse, honestly, because we like tried to go too hard. We always do for points, which is like a combination of how hard the roots are plus how many you do, which is different than just going for pitches, which is like, that's just how many, doesn't matter how hard the pitches are.
Right.
We usually go for high number of hard pitches. We went too hard the second year. We were like, we're gonna climb every 513 and like, and then we just burned ourselves out and did worse in our second year.
You were like trying to do the 100-meter sprint in the marathon.
Yeah. We actually, I think, okay, so what happened that year was our big rivals, you can't even really call them that because they're so much better than us, are Rob and Vas. So Vasya Vrotnikov and Rob D'Anastasio.
Okay.
And they are the like gold standard of Horseshoe Hell. They hold all the major records. They have the record for most pitches in a year. They have the record for most points in a year. But that hadn't happened then. We knew that they were the best, but they hadn't set those records. And so then like that second year, we were doing a lot of trash talking with them because they're friends of ours.
Yeah.
Well, they're friends of mine from way back, and we were like, we think we're gonna, So like that year, we got third place. We didn't do as well as the first year, but we still got third place because it's all like, how everybody else does affects.
Right.
So we got third place with like 42,000 points.
Okay.
And second place had like 43,000 points, and Robin Voss that year had over 100,000 points. So they like easily more than doubled what we did.
Yeah.
And so it just happened to be the year that they set the all-time record.
Right.
Which it would be very, very difficult for somebody to break that record, except for Robin Voss. Like Robin Voss, they've talked about like going significantly higher than that, but for us, we're like kind of, we're playing for second place with those guys.
Right.
They're just too good. But that's fine because, well, anyway, that year was a little disappointing. And then like the next year we got second place, but we still finished. So that year, Rob and Voss went just for pitches. They weren't going for points, and they still won points just by going for pitches.
Yeah.
They still beat us just going for pitches. But we did a little better, and we got second place that year. And then like last year we finally won, mainly because Rob and Voss didn't show up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how did you?
Yeah, because they were like, what more do we have to prove? We're going for 50 hours this year.
Yeah, tell me about your goals this year.
Yeah, so this year, it's not like we don't have anything left to do in the normal, we would like to set like higher numbers, but we kind of got roped into doing this new challenge by Vasya and Rob, there were a bunch of people who said, so there's the 12 the day before, then there's 15 hours in between of no one climbing, and then the next day is the 24. And most people do one or the other. A few people will do both, and that's the 36. But over the years, many people had said, like, well, what if you just kept climbing through that 15 hours in between?
It wasn't enough.
Because the 36 is like pretty, like you do 12, which is hard. It's not super hard to like finish the 12, but then you do the 12 and then go to sleep and like wake up the next day and you're like, It might be easier because there's no like going to bed and waking up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just came off of like an endurance running event.
Okay.
It was 12 hours, and I was like, oh man, around like 2 or 3 a.m. I'm probably gonna be tired. And it's like, nope, because you're still going.
Yeah, it keeps you going.
So I was very impressed with the way that how alert I was. And even at the end of the competition, I was like, as soon as 8 a.m., because it's 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., I was like, as soon as 8 a.m. hits, I'm gonna like just drop. I wasn't asleep till like 10:30 because I just was going, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's the same thing for the 24. You start at 10 a.m. and then like 3 or 4 a.m. in the middle of the night is pretty brutal. But then the sun comes up and revives you. And then by the end of the 24, like at the end of the 24, we're never like, oh, I couldn't go anymore. We're always like, oh, I can keep going.
Really?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And that's with us, like, we usually do a sprint in the daylight hours. We've been like doing a steady fast pace the whole time, but then in that last 4 hours, we're usually down to climbing 510s, which are, that's like the moderate range for us, and we're just like climbing as hard and fast as we can, just like raging. And you do that for 4 straight hours, and you kind of like leave everything on the table because you don't need to do anything else.
Right.
But even doing that, by the end, we're like, yeah, I can keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's weird how like you can push your.
Yeah.
Really, you're just like confined. Yes, you're confined to your physical capabilities. Don't get me wrong, but like mental just has so much to do with it.
So this year, the idea is try to climb every route in the canyon across about that 50 hours, which goes from the start of the 12 through the end of the 12, through that 15 hours in between, through the start of the 24 to the end of the 24. All of that gives you a little bit over 50 hours of climbing.
Okay.
And the idea is to try to climb all 530-ish routes in the canyon in that 50 hours. Although we have a simulator that kind of tells us we can't achieve that.
Really?
It's more like we need 56 hours.
Okay.
Which there's talk of us, like, if we don't do it by the time we have to check in for the 24, we just go back out and keep going.
Okay.
Which, I don't know. We'll see. Yeah.
So 550 routes, and you said that includes the trad.
Includes trad routes. It's like 150 gear lines.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've done a fair bit of the prep on those. Like the way we approach Hell is like that first year where I was like, who cares? Like, we'll do whatever, like I'm fully over like on Andrew's prep side of things, and we're like times 100 now. So there's like all the training, physical training prep, which is like normal climbing training plus weird climbing training, like pulling rope.
Okay.
You get cramps right here in your arm from doing this pulling rope.
So do you just train just pulling rope?
Yeah, you just like in my basement like this.
Yeah.
It's so stupid. Like, you would never think to do that.
Yeah.
There's like your large muscle groups are really what gets tired from this just like nonstop like jug hauling like this. And so your lats and your scapular and your triceps all get very, very tired doing just like a lot of pull-ups and scapular shrugs and like just stuff that you don't necessarily do for climbing training.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that you're training for the easier jugs, more juggy stuff.
Yeah, and like it's funny, like when Voss and Rob set the all-time pitch record, they had to climb a ton of easy routes, like not as many as we're gonna do because we're doing everything in the canyon.
Yeah, and they're doing it with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so like that year that they set the pitch record, they went through and like ticked 5.4s. Like the idea of ticking a 5.4.
Yeah.
And Vasya's a 5.15A climber.
Right.
Right. And Rob is like he's climbed like 14 plus routes. And the idea of like putting tick marks on a 5.4
on a 5.4
for a 5.15A climber is preposterous.
That's
but
crazy.
You do it because you when you run the routes, you want them to the most efficient speed-wise and energy-wise as possible. Mm-hmm. So like a lot of the prep is going and learning the harder routes especially, and you like spend way more time on the beta of those routes because you want them not just like what's good enough to get you up, but what's good enough to get you there with the least amount of energy, the fastest possible. Usually it breaks down to like points per feet per second if you're trying to win the points category.
Okay.
Points per feet per second. So you like calculate how fast are you going to move over this route, how tall is the route, because you're not going to get extra points unless it's much taller, and you move slower over harder, so there's like all this strategizing that's like mathematical basically.
And that's what your simulator kind of...
The simulator does that, like, it's different this year because we're not going for points. It's just like climb every route.
What about moving in between routes?
Yeah, so that's like, the simulator does that too.
Okay.
Like how long does it take to run from this zone to that zone?
Yeah.
Initially, when Voss gave us the calculations, he said it was going to be like 17 miles of running, and we were like,
on top of the climbing,
like I don't know, 15 to 20,000 vertical feet of climbing or something. I don't know how many vertical feet it is. It's like multiple miles of vertical climbing.
So like El Cap a couple times over.
Yes, right.
Sweet.
Yeah, for sure. it's at least 3 L caps, if not like.
I mean, El Cap is 3,000. So if you're doing 20,000, that was a little bit of an under.
Like, yeah, but it's not 17 miles of running. It turns out like it's actually probably gonna be a marathon.
Wow.
Of just trail running.
Wow.
In 50 hours as you're also doing the climbing. So like there's also that part of the prep.
So you're talking to someone that just got off that 12-hour comp and did 28 miles in it.
Yeah.
So that took 12 hours.
But this is not like, you're not running straight, right? Like
right,
you get to rest, but your rest is climbing.
Right.
And your rest from the climbing is the running.
Yeah.
And like climbing is not as hard on your legs as running is.
Right.
And running is it's not hard on your upper body as like, so, but you're still running a marathon in between, like a spread out marathon with no sleep across 50 hours, you know?
Yeah.
So there's like all that, and then there's like, I don't know, you got to know where to stash all your food and stash your gear, because you need like, and plus we have all this trad gear that's a new thing.
What do you guys do for ropes? Like how long are your ropes? Like do you do the double rope thing?
We mainly now just do the single rope with the carabiner thing, like with a triple action locking carabiner, because the double action ones are known to, if you fall wrong on them, the gate can get twisted open and open up.
Okay.
So we use a triple, even that's not a guarantee, and you can cross-load your carabiner. And
we'll talk about this afterwards.
Yeah, it's safer to do the double rope method. Carabiner method is like,
So why are you doing the carabiner method?
Because it's less hassle to deal with, because like, so it's not that we are just on one rope or even just on 2 ropes, because every zone has its own rope. One, you don't have to run with it, but mainly it's that they're cut to length.
Yeah. So what length do you guys cut them to?
Whatever the tallest route in your defined zone is it's just tall enough to get you down from that.
I absolutely love like all the planning that's going into this. You have to.
I don't play Dungeons and Dragons or anything like that, but it's like a live action, the strategy that goes into all of this, and like running around the canyon and stashing everything, and like it's a crazy game that you're playing.
Yeah.
On top of all the like physical effort that you have to put into it, the strategy is beyond anything I've ever strategized for sure. So yeah.
The simulator says it can't be done.
Yeah,
how do you feel about it though?
Well, okay, so if anyone's gonna pull off doing every route in the canyon, it's not gonna be me. It'll be Voss and Rob. All right, so like, and part of that's because there's several routes there that I just haven't done yet. Like there's 114 that I haven't done, and there's like 313s that I haven't done.
So you're just expecting to.
Well, I'm also gonna get out there a couple days early, and like who knows, like maybe I'm in, but probably I'm not gonna do every route in the canyon. So I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I'm just kind of like, well, I'll just do the most that I can do, and.
But that's like a nice thing to have.
To shoot for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing I will leave some routes on the table.
Okay.
Plus this other thing that's happened is like we've gone out and prepped some of the things, and we've accidentally added new routes to the scorecard.
Okay.
Because we thought they were like a route, but it wasn't. And then we did it, and we were like, well, there's another route in the canyon. We better tell the scorecard keeper, tell Luke, who makes the scorecard, and then they get added. So I think we've added like 4 new routes as part of the prep, because we didn't.
And you're like, we did this to ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, but then you're like, it's in there, so might as well. And if it's like a big obvious crack, especially, you're like, why are we avoiding? And it's a personal challenge, so but the ropes are cut to length, so you have to do less pulling. Whatever's left in the pile has got to come all the way through.
Well, that's what I said to Jed. I said to Jed, he goes, well, we can just take our 70.
No.
I was like, based on what I've heard, that's not a good idea.
The longest one you'll need there is a 40.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, longest is 40. The average height of every route in the canyon, 520, is 45 feet. That's the average height. There are routes that are like 80 feet, 90 feet maybe.
That makes me feel a little bit better.
Most of them are
so
short.
our goal going into it is we just want to hit however many routes it is to be eligible again next year without lottery. Which I think it was 75 per person.
In the 12?
Or something.
You're doing
in the 12? Yeah.
75 in the 12, that's right.
So we're just going for routes. Like we're not really going for points or anything.
Yep.
But it's crazy to me that you're saying that Ross and Bob are trying to
Rob and Voss.
Yeah, there we go.
Although I'm going to start calling them Ross and Bob.
Ross and Bob.
Yeah.
No, but those guys, it's crazy that they're hitting 100,000 because when I was like putting my points into the little like generator, I was like barely hitting 9,000. So I was like,
no, when they did 100,000, they did the 514 twice each. They did the 7 513s twice each. They did like 50 pitches of 512 on top of that, and then maybe another 75 pitches of 511 on top of that. Like, it's just pretty mind-boggling what they did that year. It sounds like overblown to say this, but it's like, in my view, one of the all-time rock climbing achievements in the history of rock climbing.
Is what they did.
Is what they did that year.
I mean, that sounds like.
Yeah.
It's like I can't even fathom it.
Yeah, it's up there with those like, you know, the big multi, like when like Tommy Caldwell did like linked up half dome into the nose, or like, and that sounds like too far because it's like those are the really epic, huge things we think of, but like this is more climbing than those.
Yeah, but I mean, like you were there to like see it, to like watch it happen. Yeah.
Well, we crossed paths, because we were competing. You know, we saw, what did we see? We were like at the adjacent crag when they fired the 14 and heard them hooping and hollering. Like that's how they started the day. Yeah. Was both of them just firing the 14A twice each, and then we just like crossed. This year we're trying to all stay together a little bit more. We got walkie-talkies because it's like the competition is irrelevant to us. This year. It's more like this thing that the 6 or 7 of us who are trying this we want to stick together and like support each other through it. The thing in Hell is, in this style, you don't stop climbing to rest, you do recovery pitches. So like you just did a 12, now normally we would do a 10. We don't usually do anything lower than 510. Okay. Now because we're doing every route, like might do a 12 and then like get on a 7 gear line where you're just like stemming your way up a corner and you're still moving fast, but you're on your feet, so your upper body's resting, and you come down. And like, I'm guessing that I'm gonna have to do more of that than those guys. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm a 42-year-old man, so.
As far as like nutrition and hydration and stuff, you stash stuff for that too, or how's that?
Yeah. Stash your food, stash electrolytes. Yeah. Stash Imodium.
Are you like
anti-diarrheal? That's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no joke. Yeah, you don't want to have to like trot off into the woods in the middle of this thing.
Right, so. Because you know, if you're calculating in tie-in time, you don't want to calculate.
Yeah. Plus, it's like you don't want to be sick in the middle of this thing. So take some Imodium. That's a pro tip.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other pro tips would you have for someone that's like on your first one?
Diet stuff, like food and stuff?
Yeah, or just like any tips.
Okay, you get really tired of like chewing on bars and stuff. You're just like, ugh, you know, and like you get sick of like, you eat the bananas to not cramp. That's good, but like you get sick of the bananas. I started doing like hearty canned soups that I just like drink cold. Okay. So like a chicken and wild rice or something is just like.
I do that for lunch all the time anyway, so.
Just like chugging those is really nice.
Yeah, and it's not so sweet. Like I find whenever I go out climbing, I always like, it's like granola bars, bananas, goos. It's like, I just want like something savory, you know what I mean? Yeah,
so just like, the savory canned soups, that's a pretty good way to go. That's my main like food strategy. The cramping thing, it happens differently for different. I usually get it around 6 hours. You may or may not experience it. I don't know. Like it's arm cramps.
Right here. Okay.
Yeah, I basically I get to a point where if I go to clip like this, my arm just freezes here. Oh. So I have to like get to a stance and push my arm out with the other, or like pull it on the rock to pull it out because it's just stuck. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure it's from too much pulling rope. Right. So people drink like pickle juice, or they make the like ultra runner anti-cramp like shots that they have. You want to be like eating and drinking the whole time
rather
than on the belay. Yeah, don't wait till you're like, oh, I think I'm hungry now, because you'll bonk. You may or may not bonk in the 12. I always hit it at the 6 hour mark in the 24 every year.
You're like looking at your watch. You're like, here it comes.
Every year, yeah. And I cannot. There's 510s I cannot climb at the time. You know, like I'm solid 513 climber, and then like suddenly I cannot climb 510. Yeah. Pro tip: psychology is like, and communicating with your partner about, you know, like how you're gonna support each other, and like Andrew and I had to do a lot of that because we're very different people. He's a very straight shooter. I tend to be a little bit more sarcastic in my approach. It took him a while to like just understand that in general, but he kind of came around to it. But in this like intense period where you're suffering, he's got like no patience for it.
Right.
So me just like busting his chops basically was like not gonna, in 24 hours, like I suddenly become like a real jerk basically.
Yeah.
On the other hand, like he has like no interest in making this like alleviating the suffering that is a part of this. He doesn't care. Like he doesn't care if he's thirsty. He doesn't care if he's hungry. He doesn't care if he has to like, you know, run 200 yards in his bare feet across the rock shards. Like he doesn't care about any of that. It doesn't affect him. And all of that, like I'm a big baby about all that stuff. Like I need to hydrate and, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that's a human need.
It is, but like he just
shuts it off.
He's a different beast. Yeah. And so that would result in like we separate to do our stashes. And so like the first couple years, like we'd get to a stash and there'd be like no water there. He's like, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Like we're just going to keep. I'm like, but why didn't you just stash water here? He's like, well, it's not going to matter. Like, and we would like bicker over that kind of stuff, you know, because you're like.
Well, and also, like, the stress is so high.
Yeah.
So Jed and I are also very different people. He's very, like, he'd be the person that would stash 6 waters when you needed 1.
Yeah.
Like, you know, he's over-prepared, and I usually am the person that I'm like, it'll be fine. Like, I think I'm maybe a little bit more of, I'm not trying to compare myself, but just, like, in mindset
You've got
way.
the Andrew mentality.
Yeah, where I'm
fine.
like, it'll be okay. But then, like, a lot of the times it's not.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So have you and Tyler talked about, like...
Yeah, we've talked through, like, we were just recently talking through, so, like, Andrew and I also have this thing where I am like, come on, Andrew, let's go. And that can make him feel, like, too pressured.
Yep.
Right? And I, on the other hand, like, kind of need that.
Right.
Especially at the, like, 4 o'clock when I'm, and that's not Andrew's natural mode, is to, like, he's just, like, you know, he's
not going to encourage, like...
Right.
Yeah.
So we've had conversations about, like, he's like, dude, like, chill out a little bit. And I'm like, all right, like, give me some hype, you know, because like I'm down, you know, like I need you to help me keep going. So and Tyler and I have talked through that too. I can remember like being a camp counselor, and there was this other counselor who would go up to the kids and be like, and how do you like to be encouraged? And I was like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. And now I'm like, Andrew, this is how I like to be encouraged.
Yeah.
So and so Tyler and I have talked through that. We actually, so I have 2 partners for this 50-hour thing. So
okay.
Tyler is my partner for the first like 27-ish hours.
Okay.
And then my buddy Mark, who's also doing that first 27 hours, is going to connect with me, and then we'll finish it out. So,
gotcha. I didn't
so Mark and I will have done the full 50, but our respective partners for the first 27 are going to bow out.
Okay.
And they're not going to do the next 24.
Okay.
And both those are first-time competitors.
Right. I've been talking to Tyler, and every time I see him, I say, "How's it going, buddy?" Like, and he goes, "I don't know what I got myself into."
Yeah.
He said, "But he'll be good."
He'll be fine. And
he'll be great.
He's amped.
He's more of just like, it's like, you know, his way of coping.
Yeah. He's amped for
I also feel that same way. I'm like, I don't really know what I got myself in, but I remember, so I originally messaged you to be like, hey, heard someone told me that you've done hell before, just I'd love some tips or whatever. And the first thing you said to me was, congratulations, you're going to suffer so much.
Oh, nice. I don't remember saying that, but it's true. Yeah.
And that made me laugh a lot. I was like, yeah, he that's probably very true.
Yeah. It is suffering. Yeah, it's like, it's a fair bit of the type 2 fun. But it goes in waves and stages, you know? Like I said, if you might you might bonk, but then you just like, okay, keep moving, keep going through it. Don't sit down. That's another pro tip. Don't sit down, don't lay down.
Gotcha.
Keep moving. I like to dance on the belay. Like, I like
just kind of keep moving.
Yeah, keep going with and usually it's like, because we're moving so fast, the motion of feeding the rope out is like this kind of rhythm that you can keep going like that. You know, depending on how hard you climb, like I climb 90% of what I do in approach shoes and fingerless belay gloves. And really helps your experience.
Yeah, I'm planning on just taping my hand, just because I don't see the need in, I'm not going to use gloves on anything else, so I'm like, maybe next year or something.
Yeah.
But like thoroughly taping.
Yeah, tape works just fine.
And then
you might want to like leave the fingertips exposed, you know?
Yeah.
Like just tape, because you get they call it jug rash. So you're grabbing, there's a lot of these plates, chicken head plates at Hell, which show up at, they show up at the new and the red.
At the red, there's I know what you mean.
Yeah, and those really start to, that right there on your first joint.
Oh, okay, because
really,
it's the same repeated type of.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So like the gloves are really nice for that, but if you've got tape down there, yeah, definitely don't forget to tape all the way down to there.
Yeah.
And use super glue on that tape, or it'll be gone.
It'll be
Yeah, I would do super glue on your skin, and then I would get a strip of tape and then run a line of super glue all the way down that tape, and then take that all around.
And then take it in, okay.
And then it won't come off.
You said that you have 4 kids. So do your kids come down for, like, does your family come down to support you on any of this?
To 24 Hours of Horseshoe Hell? No, they've never come out. My daughter always, because there's like horses and goats, and it's like a working dude ranch, you know? So my daughter's always wanted to come out, but it's during the school year.
Right.
And my wife usually has work, and like, who's gonna watch, you know, we're in the middle of 24 hours of, like, there's no one to watch the kid.
Yeah.
So logistically, it's been a little complicated to figure that. We've talked about maybe like having my parents come out and 1 or 2 of the kids come out, but it hasn't worked out yet. And I don't think this year, especially since 50 hours, you know, and like, it's like, even in the days before it, you're running around the canyon stashing stuff, and I don't know. But yeah, it would be nice if, Lila in particular, she always wants to come out and ride the horses, and that would be nice. So no, I mean, they come out climbing with me regularly, but not yet for this thing.
Well, cool. Well, thank you for taking the time to be on.
Yeah, happy to be here.
I'm really excited. Like, I'm really excited for my first year, but I'm also really excited to see what you guys do.
Yeah, I'm excited to, like, we'll probably run into you at some point. I mean, for sure during that week we'll see each other, but we'll probably run into each other in the competition too.
Have you ever gotten any of the tattoos that they? No. Okay.
No. Although I did. There's also the haircuts, you know?
I've seen the haircuts.
Yeah, you can get the Horseshoe Hell haircuts, and this weird thing started happening like 7 years ago. I started going bald in my beard, which I didn't know was a thing could happen. I just and like now I don't grow hair from here to here in my beard. Okay. I used to have like a beard like this, and then it just like, and 2 or 3 years ago I was walking around. I still had the beard, but it was like in process of like going away, and someone randomly was like, "Oh man, sick Horseshoe Hell cut," like at the event, and I was like,
You're like, "Oh man."
time to do something different with this.
Yeah. Well, if you wouldn't have told me, I would have never known. I just like that.
Yeah, because this is like this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
To deal with.
You're rocking it.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, cool. Yeah. Well, if people are interested in like keeping up with you, you're pretty active on Instagram.
Yeah. Vampire Professor.
Cool.
Yeah, I teach a class on vampires, so yeah. Vampire Professor is my Instagram.
Sweet. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the Crag Chat Climbing Podcast. Yeah, we're excited for Horseshoe Hell.
Yeah, me too.